First met Richard Pearce at the Nocturne Crit in London in 2014, and this crazy guy had just competed in the Brompton race around the circuit. And I do believe he might have crashed and broken his collarbone, making him an official cyclist. My relationship with Castelli dates back to 2011, so over a decade. Knowing the guys and working with them, I first met Steve Smith at the team hotel in Boulder for Garmin-Barracuda's pre-season training camp. And I think I might have thrown him a little bit because I was this potentially precocious neo-pro who was asking for custom fits to be made on all of the kit and different things to be hemmed in. And I think we had a little bit of a bond because he realized that I was very passionate about cycling kit and the tech involved. And for me, I was just super amazed to be on Castelli kit because, you know, I'd always dreamed about racing in Castelli, and for me, it was a dream come true. And when I was considering changing discipline to gravel, he was actually the first person I called. And Castelli was really the company that really kick-started my journey and foray into gravel, you could say. And we had also this mutual friend through Richard Pearce. And you know, we'd been sort of speaking about, you know, potentially how my gravel project could look and how we would sort of shape everything. And we had this aha moment, which was, hey, why don't we connect Richard into this idea and we actually just make some really awesome kit? And then it all began from there. So I came to Richard with a pretty simple question, was, can we just make something really rad? And he was like, yeah, of course, I'm all in. And then the process of actually designing a kit with Richard Pearce began. He has a background in architecture and design, and I had absolutely no idea what I was stepping into because I thought we were going to maybe have a few sketches, choose a few colors, and then all of a sudden we'd have a kit. And then 3 months down the line, we're still fine-tuning these designs. And I think I might have seen 200 to 300 different iterations of the jersey before we actually decided that it was the one. And what was quite amazing about Richard was he didn't want to do something that just looked cool. He wanted to build story into it. And Richard sort of spoke with me for a very long time, talking about my career, talking about how I got into cycling. And then he decided that it would be a really kind of fun idea to talk about that in a visual language. So he came up with the concept of a full circle because I actually began racing on mountain bikes, and then I went into road, and now I'm doing gravel. So he sort of thought in his mind that there was something circular about that, you know, in connecting 3 different disciplines. And that's where the first kit came from, which was labeled and titled the Full Circle. There was also a beautiful texture built into the kit, which was a whole series of dots with different colors through them. And what we actually did was actually counted every single one of my race days in my career, and every single one of those dots represents a race day. And then we color coded them. You know, a clear dot was just, you know, a race day. Might have finished, might not have, didn't matter, that was just a dot. But then if I had any podiums, any wins, or any special events, they were actually colored differently throughout the kit. And that also included teammate victories. So the kit actually has this beautiful texture to it. But for me, it tells a lot more. It's like every single one of those dots is actually significant to my career. The next kit that Richard designed was called Dopamine. And the idea was it was to be launched and raced at the Iceland Rift. And we thought, what are the colors that are going to create the biggest juxtaposition? But Richard still wanted to take the whole year and actually build it into this concept of the full circle. So instead of having this sort of radar that was growing on the first jersey, he wanted to actually change the circle patterns to actually look different so that it was still about the full circle. But we took the dopamine colors and he actually laid them over each other so that as they copied and contoured over each other, it created a whole new burst of colors. So it was really one of the loudest jerseys I've ever seen. I absolutely loved it. I've always really been into the technical side of cycling kit and always really loved the aesthetic outcome, but the delta between those two things is something I've never been part of the process. And watching Richard work like this was just absolutely awe-inspiring. His diction, his vocabulary about the design process, but then actually talking about how things emote him and how things make him feel, and how these things represent different things in culture, in the sport, and in a person, was something that I just had no idea could be represented into a kit. And obviously I think that they look fantastic, but for me I think the thing that really underpins RAD and what makes it so cool is the fact that there is so much thought that has gone into this. This isn't potluck. This is an exceptional amount of planning, thinking, loving, and then ultimately designing. Richard's obviously a very busy man. He has a lot of projects. He works on, huge international installations in the architecture world. He does an awful lot of design for other big companies, and cycling is just one of his big passions, and I think he loves working within it. So working with Richard, we were always just trying to fit in between all of these little time clicks that he had, and you know, the amount of messages that we had, you know, to my partner's frustration at times, you know, 11, 12 o'clock at night, we're just talking about the design, talking about how we can evolve it, what we think, how the story can change. It was something that was just, I'd never been a part of it, and it was so cool. And I think I have over 1,000 images just in the WhatsApp thread with Richard about how all of the kits have changed through the time. You know, for me, I just feel like I was somewhat of a conduit between Castelli Rad Kit and Richard's amazing inspiration. And for me, being the person that got to sort of beta test all of these kits over the past 2.5 years, and now seeing them go into production for everybody to be able to use and enjoy, it's been really one of the biggest highlights of the last few years.